The Green Party, 5 minutes each, and Catherine Delahunty.
Talo whalawa, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ko tēnei pō. Yep, the budget, yep, it happened. Yep, we survived. I was looking for the plan. All I still hear is the mine it to death or milk it dry plan. So amidst shaky international economic times, we're going to mine it and milk it, which is a continuation of previous budgets that I've heard and strategy, but it's not really going to work. Sorry, there's a group of people missing out. There's definitely a group of people missing out, and they are an abandoned generation of people who don't want to mine Aotearoa New Zealand, and they don't want it milk dry at the expense of their rivers. They have nothing against milk, but not at the expense of their rivers. So it's important that we look at the budget in the context of what's actually happening for a generation of people who are going to have to pay for the decisions we make. So if we have 60% of our rivers unswimmable because they're full of nitrates and phosphorus, we're going to leave that cost onto the next generation. If, as the budget did, we ignore climate change, we're going to leave that cost onto another generation. And that generation has been out this week attending so-called consultation meetings on climate change, etc., which weren't reported or taken or considered seriously by the media or by the government, but actually spoke for a generation of people who are not going to keep quiet about what's going to happen for them. We as a party are going to stand up for them because they actually need to have their issues addressed. They should not be carrying the costs of our negligence. The government's out of touch with the economy because those young people who are our future economy, our present economy, are swimming in debt, cannot have their own home, their wages are stagnating, and a quarter of our kids still in poverty. So this is not a budget that will deal with that. This is a budget that has cleverly touched on a range of issues, but has lost touch with the everyday, and has chosen to build an economy that only works for some of us. And there is another way, and we do believe that we've got some great ideas for doing it more positively. Looking specifically at the money spent on some of my portfolios, in water, the government has put more money in the budget for more conversation about water. But meanwhile, the actual decisions are being made in the courts, some in a precautionary manner and some in a business as usual manner. But all we know and all we can see if you go out to the communities and look at water is that the water is deteriorating. Meanwhile, the government's supposedly best practice farm, Landcorp, is assisting others to continue the conversions to dairying, despite the extremely serious issues for dairy farmers around the price, to commodify our water and use it for dairying and then dump the cost on from the upper Waikato onto the lower Waikato farmers and communities. We're going to have approximately, and this is I'm told a conservative estimate, 29,500 more cows in that catchment, and that will be leaching into the lakes, and the nitrates will be leaching into the lakes and rivers downstream, and this government is going to continue to fund a conversation about that. Actually, what they could do is stop Landcorp from being an irresponsible farmer. But are they going to do that? Well, pigs, let alone cows, will fly on that one. The government is also giving a subsidy to irrigators with an additional 25 million going to the Irrigation New Zealand to promote the government's acceleration group, to promote some unpopular and destructive dam projects, which could add to these pollution statistics and increase the pollution of our beautiful and precious fresh water, which we as a government should be protecting. So that 25 million is great news to the irrigators, but not necessarily great news to the communities. So we wonder why they're doing that. Why are they subsidising this industry? Who chose irrigation? It's not that we're not subsidising an awful lot. This is supposed to be the free market. What's happened? How come these guys can't manage on their own? How come they need a big handout from the government? Interesting. Interesting who gets subsidised in this budget. Very interesting. I'd like to touch briefly in my short time on also education appropriation. That wasn't enough. 1% increase in the operating grant for schools. Last year it was a generous 2%, which wasn't anywhere near enough. Now it's 1%. So there's now 2 new charter schools being promoted without review of the existing models, many of which of the existing first 4 and then the 9 are not in the best shape. But it's a sop to Mr Seymour, so it's got to go ahead. And lest we forget, this was supposedly about our priority learners, such as Māori, Pacific and disabled students. Look closely at what's actually happening in the charters, and that is not what's happening. We are not making a game changer around those students. So we are pretty disappointed in this budget. We are concerned about the abandoned generation, and we'll keep talking about what else we can do better.
Mr. Speaker.
5